All right, student data materials. The sea lamprey is usually found in the salt water of the Atlantic Ocean. Like some fish, such as salmon, the sea lamprey travels to rivers or lakes to breed in fresh water. When it is young, it lives in the streams and feeds on tiny microscopic material that floats in the stream. As the sea lamprey gets bigger and enters its adult stage, it moves back to the Atlantic Ocean. In the ocean, it feeds on a variety of large fish, including tuna, swordfish, salmon, trout, and sometimes shark. While in the stream or in the ocean, the sea lamprey has to be careful not to be eaten by other fish such as swordfish, sea bass, shark, and an occasional marine mammal. Unlike some fish, the sea lamprey can live its entire life in either freshwater or saltwater. It is this ability to live in freshwater that has caused so many problems in the Great Lakes. The sea lamprey affects both the fish and the fishermen. If the lamprey are killing the fishermen do not have as many fish to catch and sell. The freshwater Great Lakes are now connected by a large number of rivers and canals. Canals are man-made water passages to the Atlantic Ocean. These connections have allowed the sea lamprey to enter the Great Lakes. Sea lamprey attach to big shipping boats that carry them to the Great Lakes. The story of the sea lamprey invasion begins in Lake Ontario sometime in the early 1830s. That is when local fishermen first discovered them. The next stop in the Great Lakes was almost 100 years later in Lake Erie in 1921. The sea lamprey was soon discovered in Lake Huron in 1932, Lake Michigan in 1934, and finally Lake Superior in 1938. So side note, these are the Great Lakes, and they are found around the state of Michigan in the United States. The Great Lakes provide the sea lamprey with much food. There are about 125 different types of fish in the Great Lakes. Most of these fish are small and live near the coasts of the Great Lakes. The few larger predators, such as the lake trout and burbot, live in the open waters of the Great Lakes. However, they do not feed on the sea lamprey, so the sea lamprey has no natural predators in the Great Lakes. This means that the sea lamprey was free to prey upon the fish of the Great Lakes, especially trout, whitefish, and chub. The sea lamprey population increased quickly. Because they are not native to the Great Lakes and they were increasing in population quickly, they were identified as an invasive species. In 1955, the United States and Canada created an organization called the Great Lakes Sea Lamprey Committee. This committee studied how the sea lamprey survives so that they could create ways to remove it from the Great Lakes. This organization has spent much money to develop ways to remove the sea lamprey from the lakes. Some of the things they used have been successful, but even today the sea lamprey is present in the Great Lakes. With the support of the public and fishermen who make their living from the Great Lakes, this organization hopes to remove this fish from the Great Lakes forever. So, here is an example of a sea lamprey. It says the average length is 55 centimeters. And here is where the Great Lakes are located. So, native territory is where the sea lamprey were originally from, and invasive territory is where they went into. It's not where they're from, it's where they invaded. And here is a map of the Great Lakes and their major waterways. So, the Erie Canal was opened in 1819. And it's located right here. So it created a pathway between the Hudson River and the Atlantic Ocean to the Great Lakes. The first Welland Canal was opened in 1829, and the second Welland Canal was opened in 1914. So here is the Welland Canal, and it's again creating a pathway between the Atlantic Ocean and the Great Lakes.